First thing I'd like to start off with is with a famous quote. You might not know it, but maybe you will. Prohibition will work great injury to the cause of temperance. It is a species of intemperance within itself, for it goes beyond the bounds of reason, and that it attempts to control a man's appetite by legislation and makes a crime out of things that are not crimes. A prohibition law strikes a blow at the very principles upon which our government was founded. Just by any chance, does anyone know who that said that? Or probably not. Well, I'll let you know. Well, it was the late, great Abraham Lincoln who eloquently put those words together in a speech December 18, 1840 to the Illinois House of Representatives. But enough about good old Abe. Let me ask you another question. How many of you know what marijuana is? Yeah, of course you do, right? What a foolish question. But to be honest, I don't even want to ask how many of you in this room smoke. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Marijuana, dope, buds, kush, cannabis, weed, whatever you hip people like to call it these days. I believe that marijuana should be legalized in California. And well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, here we arrive at my credible facts. That is such being that the benefits of legalizing marijuana surely do outweigh the costs. It only makes sense. Let me tell you why. For one, there are the economic benefits. For two, there are benefits stemming from the free resources that would otherwise be used to prohibit marijuana and the use of. Since we as a nation are getting deeper and deeper into this recession, let me start with the economic benefits that would be attributed by the legislation and legalization of marijuana. It is said that taxation of regulated marijuana would generate over $1.3 billion in tax revenue for California annually. That's a lot of money, right? That dollar amount is according to new legislation proposed by California State Assemblyman Tom Ammiano. That piece of legislation being California Assembly Bill 390, the Marijuana Control, Regulation, and Education Act, which is the first bill ever to be introduced in the California legislature that seeks to tax and control the sale of cannabis. With all these cuts to the state budget and state employee layoffs and furloughs and such, it really seems that there's little to no light at the end of this tunnel that we call a recession. However, I think this bill would be a financial lifeline that California so desperately needs and seeks. For example, my father, he's a contractor for the city of LA, and he's at risk of losing his job because of the so-called budget cuts and the budget deficit, $1 billion, the city of Los Angeles. So yeah, I'm all for it. I am not even a pothead. I just think that it makes perfect sense, and it is a viable solution for a state that is in such financial peril. If California became to marijuana what the South was to alcohol and tobacco industries, then that would just be great for the state economy, community, and humanity all around. Like I said before, legalizing marijuana in California just makes sense. You can even ask California Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez. Speaking live on CNN, Congresswoman Sanchez cited the West Coast majority for regulating cannabis like alcohol, as acknowledged by the normal, which is the reform for marijuana law, recent Zogby poll, and called for a statewide pilot program to assess the impact of cannabis legalization upon adult society. I mean, it just tickles me to know that by grounding one Bell helicopter that would be otherwise in the air looking for pot, the state of California can now afford to pay for an additional 1,250 school lunches for hungry elementary kids. In 1960, the police were encouraged to target individual drug users after the drug war started. The number of prisoners in the U.S. rose from 20,000 to 415,000. By 2004, that number jumped to an astounding 1.75 million. Reportedly, half of these incarcerations were from marijuana charges, and furthermore, 88% of these marijuana charges were solely for possession only. So with those numbers, I arrive at my second point. If we decriminalize marijuana, we would have room in the jails for the real criminals. You know, the rapists, sex offenders, murderers, people like that. As of right now, we have overcrowded prisons because we lock up the pot smokers. Just between 1985 and 2000, the increase in state spending on corrections was nearly double that of the increase to higher education. $20 billion on corrections, $10.7 billion on higher education. And that's from cell blocks or classrooms, the Justice Policy Institute. Even with that increase, we still need to release 57,000 inmates because we can't afford to incarcerate so many people. Every year, a prisoner spends in prison costs taxpayers, like you and I, an average of $22,000 per year, as determined by the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice. So instead of releasing the nonviolent criminals like pot smokers, the state releases sex offenders into these halfway houses. I mean, come on. I know you've seen them on the news. He lives right there on the Amigo block. In addition to some people against legalization of marijuana speak of when we decriminalize marijuana, we're allowing more people to consume. Ironically enough, in a recent report by the University of Washington, the findings of the report clearly prove that to be false. Basically, that report is stating that as people get arrested for possession, whatever, of marijuana, the amount of people actually using does not go down. It increases. The findings concluded that the enforcement of criminal penalties against marijuana possession is not associated with the reduction in cannabis use, availability, or potency. Increasing marijuana arrests does not achieve the stated goals of marijuana prohibition, the study found. Despite recent increases in marijuana arrests, the price of marijuana has dropped. Its average potency has increased. It has become more readily available, as I'm sure you guys might know. And marijuana use rates have often increased during the decade of increasing arrests. Another study conducted by a Harvard economics professor, Jeffrey Mernon, on the budgetary impact on the legalization of marijuana on a federal level. The report estimates that legalizing marijuana would save $7.7 billion per year in government expenditure on enforcement of prohibition. $5.3 billion of these savings would accrue to state and local governments, while $2.4 billion would accrue to the federal government. The savings in state and local government expenditures that would result from marijuana legalization consist of three main components: the reduction in police resources from the elimination of marijuana arrests, the reduction in judicial resources from elimination of marijuana prosecutions, and the reduction in correctional resources from elimination of marijuana incarcerations. And just maybe in the end, Los Angeles will be able to free up enough resources from prohibition enforcement so they would be able to test all of their rape kits. Remember, Los Angeles has thousands of untested rape kits. Meanwhile, we have unlimited resources for incarcerations. Eliminating delays in rape kit testing is especially crucial to realizing justice for rape victims in California, where the 10-year statute of limitations for rape can be lifted if the rape kit is tested within 2 years of the date of the crime and a DNA profile is found. And in some cases, failure to test means that a rapist could have been arrested will remain free. And that's a quote from Sharon Shelton with the Human Rights Watch. This is just another reason why the legalization of marijuana can benefit California and its citizens. The pursuit of happiness, people. That is why we did a T in the Harvard. So in conclusion, I hope I've informed you well enough to decide for yourself what is right. The economic benefits and the benefits that stem from freed resources clearly tip the scale in the favor of marijuana legalization. In January 2010, that bill, as I mentioned before, will be heard before legislators.
No, you are.